Welcome to the Tarot Tapestry, a weaving of self-discovery, where three tarot mavens put their heads and hearts together to offer their wisdom and insights about the tarot. We hope that you find this helpful in your personal journey to self-discovery and growth.
Join us as we explore ways to use tarot for self-reflection and self-correction.
Together, we'll discover new ways to use tarot to weave threads of understanding into the tapestry of your life.
Hi, I'm Angie.
I'm Kate.
And I'm Linda, and this is the Tarot Tapestry with the Tarot Trio. Join us as we explore and discuss what the tapestry of tarot means to us.
This is very exciting. This is very exciting time right now that we are introducing our new podcast to all the tarot enthusiasts out there in the world. So welcome everybody. And yes, Angie, I know you were really excited about wanting to dive right in to this episode.
I'm so excited that we changed it, that we picked this name, because as soon as we picked this name, right after I was starting Kundalini training, and Kundalini is a branch of tantric yoga, and Tantra means to weave and reweave. So I thought it was just so cool that we changed it to Tarot Tapestry, or picked Tarot Tapestry as our name. And I like the similarities I'm finding between these two practices in my life. The main thing in Tantra is that everything is connected, everything. And I kind of feel like it's that way with the tarot too, because it doesn't, whatever question you ask, you can find some guidance, some symbolism in there that can help you figure it out. And tapestries are just disconnected pieces of colorful string until a person comes along and puts them in order, and puts them in some kind of an order. And I feel like Kundalini and tarot both help me do that with my life, with whatever I'm going through. I gain insight through sitting and meditating and listening. And tarot does the same thing for me. If I feel stuck, or if I feel like I need to, excuse me, explore something deeper, or there's something I'm not seeing, because we're all really good at that pulling our hoodie over our head. I don't see that. You can't get me if I can't see you. And I just think that these are both very gentle, self-guided, go at your own pace kind of things. And once you are comfortable in either of the practices, you can tell when there's something that you're being very resistant to, because it will just keep coming up. It's not going to go away. And I feel like the biggest threat we have as like a species to human beings is our continued willingness to just stay unconscious about reality. And this is a really good way to help wake yourself up and set yourself on a path. It doesn't have to be the right path right away, but it'll help you, see where you are right now, like a little X on the map. You are here if you wanted to, and that, or you can start to figure out where you want to go next and how to get there. So that is what the tapestry means to me, is that it's just everything is connected into one thing, and you can't change part of a tapestry without changing the rest of it. You know what I mean? So when you make these changes in yourself, it's going to ripple out into your life in good ways, but sometimes it can feel very, very intense at first. If you're not a very good weaver yet, if you haven't spent a lot of time connecting with yourself in this way, it can be a little scary. But just like you can learn to weave or dance or sing or sew, you can learn how to engage with yourself in a way that is gentle and compassionate, but also realistic and logical and action oriented. Like, if you gain all of this knowledge and you don't take it out into the world, you don't use it to change your life, it's kind of like a why bother, right? So that's what I like, is the image of a tapestry being connected. Everything is connected somehow.
I love that, Angie. That was wonderful. You know, when I was thinking about I was thinking about threads, right? So the tapestry is woven together with pieces of thread. And I started to think about these threads being or representing the four elements that we find in the tarot, right? They represent our thoughts, our emotions, our desires, and our resources. And I started to think about how when you're weaving these threads together or these elements together, it's creating your narrative, your story, right? So some tapestries, they will have stories, right? It was, I guess, once used as a means of telling a story, right? To pass it down from generation to generation. And I love the idea of this tapestry representing our personal story and how our personal story changes throughout our whole entire life. And I love to think of tarot as a means to help guide us in that change. So if I think about the threads of, and I'm going to say the threads of thoughts, right? How are those threads of thoughts weaving into our emotions and our desires and our resources and affecting how we use them or how we see them, and then the same thing with all of the other ones, how our emotions affect our thoughts, how our emotions affect our desires, right? And as we learn to become more aware of our emotions, desires, thoughts, and resources, then that picture, right, that you're weaving changes and our story changes. So I also love the idea of having this control over our narrative, right? Like we control our story, not everything about it, right? There are some things that we can't control, but for the most part, we have a good say in how we want to live our life, the story that we want to tell ourselves and the story that we want to tell other people. So I just loved thinking about these threads as the elements because it's so important, that we think about all of these elements and how they play out in our life currently, and then how when we're using the tarot and we're picking our cards, those cards are going to be reflective on our thoughts and our emotions and our desires and our resources, so they're going to reflect back to us what is happening in our life right now. It's going to reflect back the stories that we're telling ourselves. And then maybe on another pull, it's going to guide us into, okay, so how can we change this? How can we change this so that we can create a better narrative? How can we change this tapestry, this picture that we had once created? How can we change it and morph it into something that's, more productive for you, or something that is just better for you in your life? Yeah, so that's all I got.
Well, that's a lot.
I'm sorry.
No, but
a lot. That's so good.
I love what both of you said. I've thought of tapestry a lot in my life in terms of just how lives are put together, because people talk about, bad things that have happened and to them or to their friends, or things that they've gone through that they wish they hadn't gone through. And, I'm in no way, I go back and forth. Sometimes I do subscribe to the things happen for a reason. Sometimes I'm like, things just happen. They just happen. And, what we have is the ability to decide how to react to them or how to handle them. We don't have any control over what's going to happen just out of the blue every single day. I mean, I could step wrong out of my front door and fall down and break my teeth. I have no control just to try, other than to try to just walk and keep my feet on the ground. But my choice would be, well, am I going to go get this fixed, or am I just going to lie here and scream into the universe? But while you guys were talking at the beginning, right before we started, I decided I had shuffled my deck, and I decided I would just pull a card off the top, and I'm going to show you, even though this is voice for the podcast. This is Three of Pentacles, which I love this card because it's about collaboration, and it is literally sort of about weaving, if you want to use that term, weaving or building something into existence with other people, and how you work with other people. And hopefully, if you're in the right group, if you're in a good group, you will have people who acknowledge that they have certain strengths and other people have different strengths, and they're there to support that and work in such a way that you end up creating something that none of you could have created by yourself. Now, each one of us could go out and do our own podcast if we wanted to. It probably wouldn't be the same. Obviously, it's going to be pretty one-dimensional because it's just one person kind of talking out there. But together, I think we can create something that's really cool. And that's part of the tapestry, because when I think about, obviously, Angie and I have met, but only because we live in the same state. And I thought it would be cool to drive across the state and meet her. But Kate, if it wasn't for the tarot diagnosis, I would never have known you existed, because you're over there in New York and doing your thing, and I'm here in Colorado doing my thing. And Angie and I just met because we happened to work at the same company, same thing. Even if we had not worked at the same company in the same industry, we would never have known each other existed. And here we are on opposite sides of the same state. So, when you kind of think back onto the tapestry of your life and kind of unravel that, you see where things come together and, create this really interesting cloth that you have woven so far in your life. And that's what the Three of Pentacles kind of says to me, is that you've got all these different skills and abilities with different people, personalities, whatever, and you come together and you work on something really, really cool. And I think, the tarot is like that, because you could have a question, you could feel like you come up against a wall, you don't really know, maybe you don't know what to do next, or you don't know if you should pick this direction or that direction, and the tarot can kind of help you go in the right way to, weave that nice little pattern and not have a big hole, or not have a mistake. I'm not saying it's going to give you all the answers, but if you, like you guys have talked about, if you approach it from a conscious level of trying to be very present in your life and use your life experience and your skills and your knowledge along with something like the tarot, you can make an informed decision and not just kind of blunder through, but like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't even think about it. It's like, and so make something really, really, really rich in your life.
I love that, Linda. That was awesome. And I really like when you mentioned how the cards are not going to give you all the answers, right? It's a two-way street. You're working with the cards to develop answers, but these answers come from you. The cards are sort of like giving you a little hint. They're moving you or guiding you into a direction, to look at. And like you said, they give you, or they help you create an informed decision about something.
And they can
lay out.
Even if you're a beginner, even if you haven't really done much reading about the tarot and you just thought, oh, I'm going to pick up a deck, even just looking at the image sometimes. This is an image of, I'll describe the image. It's the Modern Witch tarot, which is kind of cute. So it's this woman sitting on a bench. She's got a sketch pad in front of her. There's a nude woman in front of her. She's doing a life drawing class, obviously. And then there's a woman standing beside her, kind of with her arms crossed, kind of looking down, like that's probably her instructor. So, it's three people with different skills. You have the model, because if there was no model, there would be no subject to draw. you have the artist, and then you have the person who's gonna, maybe this is a beginning artist, maybe not, they're working on some kind of something, and they've got 3 pentacles up above on the top. And so I completely lost my train of thought.
They're all working together to make something they couldn't make alone, right? The instructor can't
but what I'm saying, oh, I know what I was saying, is that even if you don't know a lot about the tarot, if you just look at the image, that can give you an idea, and you can say, oh, even like say the 4 of swords, oh, that person's lying down and they're holding their sword, there's other swords are over here, oh, maybe it means I should just rest for a while. Maybe it just means I can, pull back and take it easy. You don't have to know every in and out meaning of the card for them to have meaning to you.
Exactly. And also, what Kate was saying earlier about gaining knowledge about your situation is you have to, like, that has to be voluntary. You have come looking for something, so you're gonna find it.
Right.
But you are the one that has to do the thing. You can get, support from spirit or whatever it is you believe in. But you have to do the thing. And you have to decide how you're going to be while you do the thing. Like my desk broke right before we started recording, and I am so freaking annoyed with that right now. But
but you could have just thrown a tantrum and said, my desk broke, I can't do this today. I'm out of here.
That was my, you can tell Linda's met me. She's like, oh, I know what her instinct was. She's kind of the fuck it, this is too hard type.
Right.
This is a minor inconvenience and I would just rather not. But it's a thing that, that's something I am voluntarily working on. I'm trying to not be so reactive to everything.
Yeah.
Which is, most of the time I'm pretty good unless I'm like hungry or tired or cold or
to go back to what you were saying, Angie, is that people are just, it seems like people, and maybe it's my age, okay, I'll 100% own that. I really work hard on not being when I was your age, we didn't have water. We had to put hydrogen and oxygen molecules together ourselves.
By hand. Yeah.
And so I try not to do that, but when you have a certain amount of life experience and things were certain ways at certain times in your life, I kind of can't help it, because that just informs a lot about how you look at things. But I think it's important to have that open-mindedness, and I just find it now, regardless of age, that people don't really want to, one, they don't want to give up their beliefs. They don't want to, and by give up their beliefs, I'm like, they don't even want to be open to the fact that there are other ways. Not that
their thing, whatever they're doing is affecting. That's tarot's a really good way, because the only person you can change is yourself.
Right.
And tarot is very good at showing you that.
Exactly.
It can also sometimes be, point to this situation is probably just bad for you. Like,
right.
But then it says, what are you going to do about it? You can't.
It's bad for you, and how are you going to get out of it? Or are you going to get out of it?
Yeah.
Are you willing
to get out of it?
Exactly.
And if you don't, maybe let's talk about why you're so fucking self-destructive. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people just don't want to, they don't want to be that introspective, or they don't even know what introspective is. And I know that when I was younger, like in my mid-teens and early 20s in college and stuff, and I was reading a lot of science fiction, and those are books that sort of, gave me those questions. I'm like, you read a book and they talk about, for instance, I'll just use Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. And the basic premise is there was a mission to Mars, co-ed. They got there, they had an altercation or whatever, and all of them died except two of the astronauts had a child. So they had a baby. Everybody died, whether they killed each other, I don't even remember, but everybody died. And there were Martians. Okay. So the Martians, which were completely physically different from humans, they took this baby and they raised this baby. And then, so 20 some years later, there's another mission to Mars, and they find out that yes, there are Martians, because they didn't know that, because the previous astronauts had not communicated that yet to the world. And they bring this baby back thinking, oh, we're going to bring him home. This person has no clue what it means to be human, because he was raised by Martians. And talk about mind bending to get your head around that and think. And the biggest question is, why do I believe the things that I believe about religion, about relationships, about government, about everything? And that book caused me to question everything that I thought was my rock solid belief in life. And, it's like,
Yeah. And I like that, you can use tarot to explore those themes in a way that can feel a lot less threatening than, say, going to a new church, or maybe even checking out a library book can, for some people who have serious, don't want to ask questions, complexes, this is a really accessible way to get sort of, it's not really outside input, it's all coming from you, but
right.
But
it's
a
a
way
little bit more gentle.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of people, in fact, there are people in our groups, various groups, who, for a long time, they were raised with the idea that anything like tarot or, even yoga was demonic.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to send you straight to hell. And just the fact that they would be curious and want to explore that, I mean, it takes a big step, a big leap of faith, and a big, it's got to be scary when you think that this is,
I'm in Western Colorado, which is not hell. I've been doing both things, not yet, as far as we know. I've been doing both of those things for a long time, and I've never summoned a demon. I've never felt threatened, how some people get, but maybe that's just because, like, I went to Catholic school from 2nd to 6th grade, and from the time I was 7 years old until I was done in 6th grade, I was the only member of the family who went to church. I was a child. And some of the things these people in the fancy dresses would say and do were just like, hi, I'm 9. Why do you act like that? That's not a nice way to act, or, and so I didn't really take their threats very seriously ever, which is unusual. I know when you're a child.
That was the same way for me. I mean, my family was Presbyterian because my grandfather was a Presbyterian minister, and my dad, but he never really talked about, neither of my parents really talked about their faith, other than, we have to go to church on Sunday. And, I'm like, why? Because we have to go to church on Sunday. Okay. Yeah. And,
my family didn't go, like, they weren't even Christmas and Easter Catholics. Like, they didn't go. I went to church every day because that's where I went to school. I had to go to church every day before school. And, it's probably not the best way to hone your bullshit detector, but it is very, very effective.
Yeah. In the meantime, while I was going to church on Sunday, which was a struggle because we had young kids and there was, but everybody couldn't fidget and all that. Anyway, in the meantime, while I was doing this on Sundays, I was at the library reading books on Greek mythology. Yeah. And, Zeus and Hera and all that crew was way more interesting.
Oh, yeah.
and seemed way more real than whatever I was hearing in church. And then I would hear the things in church and see people acting in the direct opposite way of what I was told, how I was told I was supposed to act, as a good Christian, but yet people were acting in the opposite way and didn't seem to have any consequences. So it's just like, well, I'll just stick with Zeus and Hera, and they're
Yeah.
a lot
And in
more.
the context of life and what we're supposed to be talking about, I guess, when you make your own decisions about these things, it really does, like, because I was not I don't want to say anyone with faith is brainwashed, but that's kind of like what it felt like was trying to happen to me when I was a kid. Like, you have to think these things. Nobody around you follows the
Trust
rules,
me,
any
it's
of them, but
brainwashing.
you're supposed
It's
to believe
cultism.
it, and it was just very weird. But because I that made me more ready, I think, when I found the deck to just say, yeah, give me that. I want to learn about that. And I think, it didn't have like this huge impact on me as a teenager or anything. I really didn't start using it productively until I was probably in my 30s, because up until then it was kind of a game.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to tell the future. Does this boy like me? What does he think about me?
Right.
But it does. However you use the deck exposes you to different ways of thinking.
Right.
And that is important. That is so important, I think, it's all the time, but especially in times like this when everybody's got a bug up their butt about something. And most of those bugs were put there by other people. Like, most people who are upset have very valid reasons for being upset. And this is something that we can all sort of agree. There are certain themes that go through life that affect everyone, no matter what, to varying degrees and to varying, degrees of harm and benefit and privilege. And there's just really nothing that you can't learn more about if you sit down with an open mind. And you're not one of those jerks who's like, prove it to me. Well, the deck's not going to do that, pal. That's not
the
how
Bible.
it works. Like, have you ever gone up to buy a lottery ticket and been like, prove it to me? I mean, you've got as much chance of winning as anyone else, is what I'm saying. We all have equal access to this intuition, to this kind of insight, but we don't access it equally. And I'm just talking about inner knowledge. I'm not talking about any kind of knowledge that you have to, like, there's a lot of things you have to have money to do, but tarot should not be one of them, in my opinion. I think you should be able to explore different ways of thinking.
Absolutely. And when you think about expanding your mind, right? Like, we as humans, it's in our genes, in our bones, in our blood to be curious about the world. And yes, as we grow up, we're learning about the world, right? From our family, from organizations that we're part of, from school. And as we get older, that social circle changes and we're learning new things. But I think it's so important for people to know that you can believe something, but you can also question it and say, they're saying this to me, but you know what? Something just doesn't feel right, right? Like, now that's going to what you just said, Angie, about your intuition, that inner knowing, this doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. I want to explore it some more. I want to really go into understanding this. And then as you're doing that, you're coming up with all of these other ideas. And then you, as the individual, get the opportunity to make your own choices and say, hey, I believe this. This sounds right to me. This feels right to me, right? And I do that there are tarot enthusiasts out there who are also religious. There are tarot enthusiasts who, like going to church, believe in God, believe in Jesus, but they also have a very open mind to say, there are other ways that I can explore the world and my life. And it's not just religion. Like, religion is not the answer to all.
There's more than one way of knowing, is the thing. And the thing I like about using tarot and meditation, in my case, for figuring out what's going on in my ginormous noggin, um, for real, is that once I know how most decisions, I feel like we make most decisions from a place of, I don't really know how I feel about this, but I'm just going to say yes, no, maybe, ask me later, whatever,
Yeah.
because I just don't want to think about it anymore. I just want to make a decision. And um, so it helps you make better decisions by getting clear on how you actually feel. And a lot of that, and it's a learning curve, a lot of that is like, oh, I feel like this. It doesn't mean everyone else does or should
Right.
or has to, in order for me to live a happy life the way that I want to live my happy life.
Yeah,
But
I think whatever helps you come to the ultimate realization that what other people think about you or your life or your decisions really doesn't matter. I think that gives you a lot of freedom
I
in
think
terms
that the unwillingness to think about the way we make choices and the choices that we make, the unwillingness to really think, like, do I really want this?
yeah.
Do I really
Yeah.
want
Not because,
that I'm spending my time, energy, effort?
because my kids want me to do it, not because my mother
Right.
will judge me.
Yeah.
How do I feel about it?
Mhm.
And, I think once you can come to that realization that that's important, and I think women particularly have struggled with this because, they want to make their parents happy. They want to make their spouse happy. They want to make their kids happy. They want, and then their own happiness falls way back in the list. And I think part of the situation that's going on in our social, a lot of it's politics, but I think a part of our social upheaval is like women are no longer willing to put themselves in not only the back seat, but all the way at the back of the bus when it comes
And then
to
to constantly keep moving to the end of the line anytime
yeah,
anyone else has
exactly.
something.
That they want to have a chance of at least getting to the front of the line sometimes,
Word.
and they're just not willing to put up with it anymore. And the people that have been in the front of the line and have had that bolstering and backing from somebody who's behind them 100%, they're not comfortable with it. And so there's a lot of pushback.
Mhm.
And as I'm listening to you guys talk about all of this, like self-discovery keeps coming up, and I know this is our introductory episode, to our
Welcome to Tarot
podcast, and it's and
Yes.
but I mean, the title of our podcast is Tarot Tapestry, but it's also followed by a weaving of self-discovery. And when everything that we're talking about now really comes down to self-discovery, allowing yourself to discover who you are, right? Because I think so many times we listen to everything that you guys are saying, right? We listen to all of this input from society, and we're sort of like trained to only believe and listen to what's being told, and we're not taught enough and encouraged enough to believe our own inner knowing, our intuition, right? And I think that with the tarot, it helps us to do that. It helps us to get more in touch with us. It filters out all of the noise that goes on around us, and it's just you and your deck in a room, and that's the interaction, and you have the control, and it's such a special feeling. It's like, there aren't many other things that give me such an amazing feeling than when I am alone in my room with my tarot deck and just working with it, however I choose to work with it. There's something so beautiful about that. And I really hope that, with our listeners who are here right now with us and listening to this, this episode, that, that you think about creating some kind of space for yourself, creating that space where you can. And if you're thinking about it, and you have been thinking about it, and now you're exploring the vast world of podcasting, and you're listening to all of these different tarot podcasts and such, I think that's your intuition saying, hey, take some time and explore this a little further. you
And I
know,
think the
and
most
I,
important, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
no,
My
no,
my
go.
sound is
It's fine.
lagging. I was just going to say one of the most important spaces to cultivate is your mental space. Like your mental, like I'm putting walls around this thing that I do for me. It's for me. And
Yeah.
I can't always take, I love a good ritual. I've got bells and candles and vessels. I love that stuff, but I did not have time to do it when I was a mommy of small people. No way.
Right.
I mean, the pieces would have been flushed down the toilet or used to feed the cat or, whatever. But having the mental space and the intent to figure out how you feel about the cards before letting anyone else tell you how you feel, how you
Right.
should feel about the cards or
Right.
what you should think. And don't, there's, if you have a community or a class that's led by someone that you really respect and you love the way they read the cards and you love the way they interpret things and you feel very encouraged by them, there's nothing wrong with education. That's fantastic. But you need to be very careful because there are a lot of people out there who will take your money and tell you you're doing it wrong
Uh-huh.
and, you know, and make you very self-conscious if, everyone has a tender heart. Nobody likes to be told they're doing it wrong.
Right.
And so protect your space. Yes, block out all of the mental space and the time space that you need and make yourself a cute little, even if it's just like, this is my favorite blanket and my favorite snack, and I'm going to sit on the couch with my deck and I'm going to, pull a card for every week this month and just see what I see, just see what happens, you know. But
And you
yeah,
don't
that's
even have to like do it. It's and like if we think about time, you don't have to spend a half hour with your cards looking at everything. Probably
Right.
the best thing to do as when you're getting into tarot for the very first time is a 5-minute thing. Like pull a card, look at it, just look at that picture. What kind of, and I know Linda, you were talking about this before,
Yeah.
but to take it like a little bit further, just look at that picture and say, what kind of story do you see going on in that picture? Because
Right.
most of the times, whatever story you're conjuring up based off of that picture is going to have some kind of reflection about your own story,
Yeah.
so it
And if
it
you,
helps. And it's just like getting used to the cards and looking at them as like a character in a picture. And they have, their it's an actor on a stage and they have all of their props and everything there and everything is placed, in a certain place and it has a meaning, but that meaning is going to is going to be different for you than it will for me, and
Mhm.
I think that's like a wonderful way to kind of just start. What kind of story do I see in this
Yeah, and
picture?
the other thing is when you pull a card in the morning and you can just say, okay, tarot, what do I need to know today? And just pull a card and you can think about it for a couple of minutes and then just, put it on top of the deck or whatever. And later on in the day, something might happen and you're thinking, oh, that's what this is all about.
or
That's, or some things happen, then you come back in the evening and maybe you've forgotten you even pulled a card and then you look at it sitting there on your deck going, aha, okay, next time this happens, I can do this, or, that's what I was supposed to be doing today, and, or how to handle whatever happened. And so, yeah, so it can, you don't, like you said, you don't have to sit and spend 30 minutes doing a reading or a particular spread or anything. You can just look at that card and think, okay, three people trying to work on a project. Let's see what happens. And, then
and
just,
the fun part of that too is once you get your kind of day-to-day meanings down in your own head, then go and look up the astrology of the cards
yeah,
and it's so cool because then you go from this more focused narrowed focus into this more expansive one and you are like oh wow, the universe really is talking to me. That's how I felt anyway.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I told my
true.
kids that meditation and yoga is how I talk to the universe, and I feel like tarot is the way it talks back to me. You
Oh,
know,
that's cool. Yeah.
in a and obviously it's a two-way street in both both arenas as well. It's not just me, whatever. You know what I mean, though. That's the way I feel about those two things and how they both work together to like really make my whole life better. When
Right.
I am, you know, when I take the time to put myself first for an hour a day, which I know is a big ask for a lot of people, and you don't need that much time. You can do it in 5 minutes if you have to. But I have noticed that when I take an hour in the morning and do my practice and then sit down and write about how I feel and maybe pull a card or two and think about how I feel about those, the rest of my day goes better no
Yeah.
matter what. Like minor inconveniences might piss me off for a second, like the stupid desk. I'm so mad about my stupid desk right now. But but I'm not gonna let it ruin my day, right? I didn't let it, screw up our meeting, and I'm not gonna let it, I'm not gonna pout about it during dinner with my husband. you know,
Yeah, I mean it's just a thing, it's just a thing that didn't work. I
yeah,
mean, same thing, I have when I was sewing clothes back in the day, there were times when I would get really frustrated with collars or cuffs or, things like that. And I was doing a sample for the shop a few months ago. Angie, you remember that one that I messed up. I didn't do it the right way. I tried to rush through it, which never works. And I ended up really having to remake the whole thing. And I was very frustrated, but I was frustrated with myself,
mhm,
so as I was tearing the seams apart, and I was just kind of laughing, going, 10 years ago, you would have just been in an absolute meltdown over
yeah.
this. Now you're just kind of laughing and tearing the seams out because you got to resew them, so it does make a difference. It does help you to get a little equilibrium, I think, in your life when you kind of take a moment every day to pull a card and just think about it and see how it applies in your real life. At least it has
Mhm.
for me.
So I was thinking, maybe this might be a nice time to kind of give our listeners a little information about how long we've been using tarot, and I think the wonderful thing about the future episodes that are coming out is that each of us have a different perspective and a different way of looking at the cards. And that's actually quite a beautiful thing for others to hear because there isn't just one way to do the cards. But I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about our experience with tarot, maybe how long we've been doing it, and any other information that you'd like to share.
Yeah, I started with a deck. I think I got my first deck when I was 16 or 17 years old. So like I said, it was, I had the little white book that came with the deck. There was no internet yet. Everybody goes, oh, so many people now in my life that just can't imagine their life without internet. I'm one of them, by the way, and I've lived both before and after, and this is better. But
I am too. I am
Same.
too.
mhm. But it was at first it was like kind of like oh, that's that spooky word. That's that spooky weird girl. She's just gonna sit in the library with her deck and her cards and her books, and read Stephen King and give everyone dirty looks. I was like the most well behaved bad kid, by the way. I used to skip school to stay home so I could do my homework. Like that's
The
how
well-behaved goth.
I have. Well, no, I don't think I would ever qualify as a goth, but
No.
I think my hair was too puffy and like colorful. Um, but so I started that way, and was with my friends. We would, at slumber parties and take turns reading each other's cards and doing the Celtic cross, which I couldn't do right now to save my life. I wouldn't know what all the positions mean. I mean, I could probably lay it out and I could probably fake it, but I don't use that usually anymore. But then, as I grew older, it became more of an insightful tool. Sometimes it would be a little bit fortune telly, like I would pull a card and be like, what should we do tonight? with my girlfriends, and it would be like the tower, and I'd be like, let's stay home, you know, let's avoid the 17 car pile up on I-70,
Yeah,
shall we?
exactly.
But you know, I guess really around the time that I started doing yoga more seriously, probably a little over a decade ago now, and then, you know, using my cards in combination with that to kind of, and the moon phases and journaling and you know, just sort of to pace my life, I guess, and to help me get more insight about what the hell was wrong with me. Why was I the way, you know, why am I like this? What happened? Whose fault is this? Who's in charge here? Where do I go to file a complaint?
Oh my goodness.
By the way, it's me. I'm the one who fucked everything up. It's always you.
Yeah, it's always you.
Spoiler alert. It's all your fault. But Tara will take a, you know, will tell you that in ways that you can understand it.
I was going to say
Better than
it might say that a little bit more
Mm.
nicely.
Or yeah, and it's patient
or
because
not. It can be very blunt too.
well, yeah, and it will be at times, and sometimes it's like, listen, lady, I can do this literally forever because I'm a deck of cards, but you're on a clock. You know, how long do you want to keep indulging in this nonsense?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's my story. Who's next? I'm gonna shut up now.
I'll go next. So actually, I guess I would be considered like a late bloomer when it came time to tarot. I've been working with the tarot for like 5 years, and I can't even believe it's been 5 years. And I remember when I was much younger and in school, I always had such like a pull and a draw to like just divination in general. You know, I knew of tarot, and I knew about people reading it, and I was always very drawn to it, but also very fearful because of my own upbringing, being raised as a Catholic. And I kind of just stayed away. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody at all that was involved with tarot. So I just never pursued it. And I think 5 years ago, my life was kind of like a living hell. And I was like, really going in a spiral, and the spiral was going down and down and down. And it just like dawned on me, like, get a tarot deck. So I just bought a tarot deck, and I started learning about it, and I started reading it, and I have to say, this is like the truth, and I know people may not believe it, but me working with the tarot and the messages that I received is what got me to become sober. Right? Oh. It's like it got me to, like, it took me about a good year of just using the tarot before I was able to take that step and say, you know what? I need to stop drinking. Like, I need to stop doing this because it is ruining my life. It is bringing me down paths that are not good for me, not good for my family, and I need to stop. I'm not sure. I think I may have gotten to that point, but I'm not sure if I would have gotten there as quickly as I did just by having that. It was a little less than a year of working with the tarot before I made that decision. And then once I did, and I was, I had my support groups and everything. I still kept the tarot, and I still kept using it. And it like, whoop, I felt like it opened up a whole new world,
Yeah.
The combination. It taught you to listen to yourself. It taught you to listen to yourself.
Oh my God. It was like, holy shit. Like, I have a lot to say, right? And you know what? I'm a pretty fucking smart person. And, I can take control and the reins of my life, and I can do better. And that confidence was built up, and it was, it was wonderful. So, I really do feel like tarot helped me in my own life and just my own growth. And I kept on doing it. And then I got involved with the tarot diagnosis, right? Where you ladies are from. That's how we met. Right. And that community itself just helped me grow even more. And it was like, we're doing this, we talk about it, and then I, first started with Angie, right? You and I got together, and
Yeah.
then Linda joined us, and then it was like, girl, ladies, we are, speaking every Tuesday about tarot. Why don't we start a podcast,
Yeah,
about it? Like, why don't we
Yeah.
take our experiences and put it together and put it out there for the world to hear,
Exactly.
and here we are right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I told our oldest that we were doing this. I was like, I meet with a couple ladies on Tuesdays and we should discuss tarot. And he's like, oh my God, it's 2024. My mom's gonna have a podcast.
That's
I love it.
So what's your tarot story, Linda?
Oh my gosh. It's a little convoluted, as most things are in my life, but I think I first became aware of the tarot when my mother gave me this thing for Christmas that was it was like a game. You remember Kresgen, the guy that was supposed to have ESP, and it was like this
magician, right?
I don't know if he was a magician. I don't know what he was, but anyway,
okay.
It was like this board game thing. It was a box like that, but it had a pendulum. It had a set of cards like those ones where they try, you hold up, it's got wavy lines or a diamond or something. And, where you hold it up and say, what's on the cards? And you try to do ESP. It had those. Right. And then it had
very witchy.
Huh?
That's all very witchy.
I know. And I don't even know what my mother was. I don't even know what was going through her mind, except that, I don't know. And it had a little tiny black and white, just very simple RWS deck in it with, a little bitty book. And, and I think that's everything. I don't know. I might have had one other thing in there, but it was the ESP cards, the pendulum, and the tarot deck. And, I did the little thing where you're supposed to think yes or no and see if it moves. I did that. I did I didn't do the other cards so much because you kind of had to have another person to play off of. But I went, I looked at the deck and I remember reading the book. It was a little bitty thing and thinking, okay, that's kind of interesting. But it didn't really, like I said, I was in the 7th grade, so it didn't really pull me in any particular direction. I guess I thought it was cool that my mom wanted me to have an ESP game, whatever that means. I don't know. And so then, kind of just put it aside, didn't play with it a whole lot, and went on about high school. And then I went to college. And then I guess after I moved back home, after I got divorced, I decided I started to do a little bit of meditation, and I started to just try to, like you said, have that space when I got home from work to just try to chill out a little bit, having a toddler and all that. And so I bought this Native American deck that I didn't really connect with, but I started, and the suits were very different. By that time, I think the ESP game had just gone into the attic or, out in the trash, whatever, so it was history. So I didn't really have that other little deck to compare it to. So I never really felt like I connected with that Native American deck very much, except that, I would do readings for myself and try to figure out what it meant. And then when I moved here, one of the first stores that I went into was my friend Karen in Insta Karma, and just loved her store. And she had a really big selection of decks, and she always had them open so that you could look at them. Her stock was kind of like under the counter, and then her decks on the display were like sample decks. So you could open them up and fan them out and play with them and stuff. And that's when I found my Osho Zen deck. And that was like, I went out after I got that deck, and then I went and I bought Tarot for Yourself by Mary Greer. And that was like 30 years ago, and just never looked back. So, so I was exposed to it. I was exposed to it fairly early. It was always very neutral. It was never never given to me as anything evil or satanic, or, you know, the be all and end all answer to all my questions. So it was just a thing. And then I found the right deck that I clicked with, and that made the big difference right there.
Yeah, I think my family was basically, like I said, I was the only one who was supposed to be religious. So I think they all just sort of looked at it as kind of the same as reading the daily horoscope in the newspaper.
Right,
Like it
exactly.
was a big struggle. Now, where I am now in where my house is, I don't feel comfortable just
displaying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or unless it's with people I already know who are like, yeah, we know her,
Yeah.
she's weird, or and this is another thing I want all the kids to know that are new to tarot. Your friends who are like, that's nonsense. When they think their boyfriend's cheating on them, they're going to come and ask you for a reading. Or when they think that, it's real when they want it to be real. So
Right.
don't let that deter you. If somebody makes fun of you about it, just don't talk to them about that.
Well, the other thing is there's always going to be somebody that's going to make fun of you for something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is.
You lost access for you.
Whether you read science fiction, whether you like Game of Thrones, whether you knit, whether you whatever. Anybody.
Wait. Who does not like Game of Thrones? Bring them on. That's all I can say.
Oh, did you see in the symposium today, or maybe it was yesterday, somebody posted there, apparently there's a Game of Thrones deck.
Yeah.
Tyrion is the fool and Littlefinger is the magician.
Oh, funny. Okay. Yeah.
I think one of the members, Lisa, she won that deck from, like, there was a tarot challenge on Instagram. It's like this woman that does them all the time, and she won like a giveaway.
How fun.
She was so excited. After she got that deck, she went and started from the very beginning of the game, because she had never watched it. And she has been just watching, and she loves it. Well, everybody's got to give it a chance.
I had not watched Game of Thrones. I think it was like into season 5, and I had not watched a thing of it. I was just kind of like, whatever. And then it came on. It came on Netflix, and I think I binged the first 4 seasons in like weeks. And that when we took our trip over to Grand Junction, that's what we did. Is we watched season 5.
We did. We binged it. We ate barbecue and we binged Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, exactly.
Have you seen House of Dragons?
No, I don't watch that one.
I watched the first season. I wasn't completely taken with it. I watched that and I watched
over that universe. It really pissed me off when Danny was just like, at the end, all of a sudden she's just, now she's crazy. Just in this episode, she's fucking crazy and she's gonna kill everyone. I was like, well, that was fun while it lasted. I'm done now.
Yeah, I'm still mad about Missandei. I mean, that just makes me furious. I'm never gonna forgive anybody for that.
Yeah.
On a side note for our listeners, get used to us going off on tangents. That have absolutely nothing to do with tarot. But be assured, we will always bring ourselves back to what we are talking about.
Started out as a conversation about, I can do this, you guys, on the Aquarius. Just everybody sit down, take a seat. This is what I do. Okay, so we started out with the Game of Thrones tarot deck, right? And you can do tarot about just about anything, proving that Tarot Tapestry is great because it always connects to everything else. Like, that's exactly right. Have you seen Ozark? The series Ozark with
I watched a couple of episodes. I didn't get into it.
Or what is her name? Oh my God, I love her so much. I'm the
Laura
worst.
Linney?
Laura fucking Linney. Yes. She is the Queen of Swords in that whole show.
You know what? You know what's so funny? Now, I haven't watched Ozark, but everything that I've ever seen Laura Linney in, just like Mare Winningham, is always like, she's just
perfect.
She just can't be happy. That she's a character that can't be happy. And when I see her in interviews, like I saw her, she was on Graham Norton, and I saw her. She is hilarious. She
Yeah.
is so funny. And
I love
every character that I see her play, she's just like either just fraught with emotion about something, or somebody's doing something. Her husband is
she
cheating
is an
on her.
actress.
Well, I know, but she picks those characters. The characters that she ends up picking are the ones that are just like, ah,
Maybe the characters pick her, like in tarot when you pull a card. But in that show, right, Ozark, there was so many decisions that she had to make that were like very hard decisions. And
Yeah.
she made them. She cried and she drank a lot about them for a while. But then when it was time to get back in the game, she was like, all right, Marty, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go do this. We're going to be the drug cartel in fucking, in the Ozarks. Like,
Arkansas.
yeah. I mean, it's an intense show. I love that show. I'm glad it's over though. I don't think I could have taken more of it.
Yeah,
That was too much.
I might have to try it. I might have to tell Elijah was like, what am I going to watch now? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll tell him to watch that. I still have to finish The Wire. I haven't finished The Wire. It's really good.
I want to thank our listeners for tuning in today to our podcast, and just to give you some a little bit of information about what's to come. We want to introduce the tarot card by card. And, in our future episodes, we'll be taking each of the cards and kind of giving our own perspective on what the cards mean to us. And then talking about how that card is playing out for us, or how the energy of that card is playing out for us in our lives. And I love that we do that because it brings it to our everyday life. It brings it to reality. It takes it from, when you start to learn tarot, you're going to see all of these. One card can have like so many meanings and relate to so many different things that you can kind of get lost in it all. But the wonderful thing is, that we can show you how you can bring it kind of to your everyday life, bring it out from out there and bring it into your personal life, and how you can do that. So, I really hope that you guys will join us, because we have a grand old time talking tarot.
We do.
And my big hope is that everyone learns that this doesn't have to be scary or intimidating. There's really no wrong way to do it. You can just listen and learn about it.
Right.
And I'm really excited to help people learn about this great.
And as you can tell from this show, we go off on some very interesting tangents. So you never know what else we're going to talk about. So you should tune in just for that.
Yeah.
It's a well-rounded education, this show.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it was wonderful again chatting with you ladies, and thank you again to our listeners for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.